This is the Mobile Tech Podcast, brought to you by worldpodcasts.com. Now here's your host, Tech Girl, Miriam Joie.
Brought to you by Audible. Stay tuned for a special offer at the end of the show. Hi, and welcome to the Mobile Tech Podcast. I'm your host, Miriam Joie, and today is Friday, November 19th, 2021. And I have Eric Fisher of MediaTek and TK Bay, YouTube creator extraordinaire.
Yes.
And so we're at the MediaTek Summit here in Laguna Beach, and obviously there's been a whole bunch of announcements, Eric. Let's do kind of like a bird's eye view of the announcements and also kind of where MediaTek fits into the tech ecosystem right now. Because I think you guys have touched on so much stuff. It's so exciting to me.
Yeah, it was a busy week, right? So the biggest announcement of the week was our flagship SoC for the smartphone market, our Dimensity 9000.
Right.
Extremely excited about that. We think that that's going to set a completely new benchmark in the industry. Mm-hmm. You're talking, the new ARM cores, the Cortex X2. You're talking 18-bit ISP. The new DDR memory as well. I think it's going to give our competition a run for their money, and really make us a mainstream player in the marketplace with this flagship product. So we're really excited about that. Additionally, we talked about a couple new products with our Wi-Fi 6E launch in the marketplace. As customers are really starting to ramp new products with Wi-Fi 6E, we're well positioned to take some market share there. And all those home devices that you love and know from companies like Amazon and Sonos and your exercise bikes, as well.
Yeah.
So we're pretty excited about the new launches there. And then addition the Companion product line as well as we start to move out of the entry level Chromebook space and into kind of that mid-tier Chromebook space as well with our new ARM-based Companion product line. So the Companion 800 and the Companion 1200 devices.
That's a pretty broad portfolio. And so have you seen a lot of growth in 2021? I presume it's been a great year with all of us being at home most of the year.
2021 has been an amazing year across the board. Mm-hmm. For the semiconductor industry, right, it's been roughly just over 20% growth. MediaTek's going to grow roughly about 60%.
Wow.
From 2020 to 2021. And it's not just in smartphones. Mm-hmm. That is a massive amount of our growth because we've launched a ton of new products in that space. But it's also in our intelligent devices business group, which is all of your home automation, smart home, your Wi-Fi connectivity products as well. Our TV business continues to be strong in 2021. So overall, we have had a stellar year. If you look back in 2020, we closed the year at about 10.8 billion. I think 2021, the analysts have us forecasted roughly at about 17 billion. And then we expect some nice growth in 2022 as well.
So let's talk about each product category and kind of where MediaTek fits in. Mm-hmm. And, I think that TK has memorized most of the Dimensity stuff, which is great because I know that's not your biggest area of focus. But so let's start with that. I think that's for us as reporters who cover mobile phones. It's obviously the biggest announcement. The fact that MediaTek is really, doing the F word. We've been that's the theme of the conference.
I love that one.
Flagship for those of you who get out of the gutter. Okay, so flagship. In the past has always been a bit middling in the industry. Some people define it as something that we in the tech media don't always see. Yep. And so for once, I finally have MediaTek coming out, guns blazing, saying we're making a competitor to whatever Qualcomm's doing next at the flagship level and whatever Apple's doing at the flagship level with their own chips. And so that's super exciting. That means we're going to start seeing phones which, are right up there with the absolute best, hence that flagship word. So that's very exciting, right?
It is. And it's been a long road for us, right? So, we've got our CEO came in about 4 years ago, Rick Tsai, and said, we're going to lead this space. And so we started creating all the right IP. Rick talked about during the summit, right? Yeah. Investment. And so you're starting to see that investment pay off. The first 4 nanometer SoC for the cellular market is from MediaTek, right? And not from the other competitors, from MediaTek. So we're pretty excited about that. That Dimensity is, again, the most powerful chip we've done, the most powerful camera, right, that we've had in place.
A lot of implementation.
The most memory, the fastest memory. So we're really excited about what it means for us to be in the flagship space.
No, I think it's super cool. And, 4 nanometers means, again, a scale in efficiency, power consumption.
Yep.
As you scale up, more intense application on these different processors. And so we have an X core, right?
X2. Yeah, 3.05.
And then we've got 3 mid-speed cores and 4 low-speed, is that
Yeah,
right?
3 710s and then 4 510s.
That's
we
right.
got 3 A710s and 4 of the A510s.
Yeah,
fantastic.
That's right.
And then in terms of GPU, you got Mali G870, right?
Yeah, it's the Mali G710.
G710.
They kept the
That's the
710
one.
nomenclature.
Couldn't get that off the top of our heads.
It's like I mix up my Malis all the time, frankly. So, and then there's the big news in the ISP, I think, is that it does 18-bit now. So
And
throughout.
triple. So
And
it's
triple,
triple
right.
ISP
Yep.
and 18-bit. So it's a big shift to photography, low light photography processing. And then when they talked about the memory today, it's also the capabilities you're able to do with optimizations and improvements.
Right. So let's tangent for a second into that, because you had an announcement with Micron, came on stage and talked about how you have finally, it's real, it's been testing, it's happening.
Yep.
DDR5X is out there, 7.5 gigabits per second.
Yep.
Crazy.
Bandwidth. So the nerds watching and listening right now, you know what that means. That means faster things like low light photography.
That's right.
Faster, basically anything that requires the CPU or the processor in general, the GPU, or in fact the neural cores, the AI cores, to access data in RAM and process it and bring it back and process it and bring it back. When I worked in video games on various consoles, that was always the bottleneck as well, right? The CPU wanted something done and the GPU wanted something done. They were sharing memory, and it was always a problem in some platforms. They weren't sharing memory, but then you had to do all shuffling around of data, and that still happens. You can't really avoid it. But the better your cache is implemented and the better your memory bandwidth goes, the better the performance. It's like when you switch to an SSD. I mean, most of us now on SSDs on our computers. But for those of you out there still on a spinny disk, if you switch to an SSD, you're going to really notice the difference, right? Now, I know it's not RAM, it's storage, but... And then what else do we have? 5G, of course. There is 5G sub-6 right now, and you are promising a millimeter wave implementation in 2022 at some point.
So we've got a key partner, a key OEM brand. It's not announced yet, but we got a key OEM brand that we will launch in early second half 2022 with tier 1 carrier here in North America.
Fantastic.
But sub-6 is still our primary portfolio, the breadth of our portfolio.
Right.
And for the US, it's kind of a mix, right? You got AT&T's okay with sub-6, and Verizon wants millimeter wave. T-Mobile still on sub-6.
Yeah.
All of Europe is sub-6 still. So we're well positioned in the overall market, but you'll start to see more and more capability coming out from MediaTek around millimeter wave as we partner up with some OEMs to service Verizon. Yeah, I mean, it's not critical on a phone, I think, today, even in the US, but I think that if you are trying to, out Qualcomm and out Apple, it's a checkbox you need, right? I'm glad it's coming. I'm super excited about that. Do I dare that it'll be called? I mean, I'm making this up. Dimensity 10,000 or 9100 or something. But we were saying 9001, 9002, but we figured that was a problem with some ISO qualification somewhere.
Oh my God, yes. Oh yeah, right. So that's kind of a pretty good overview of what you're doing with Dimensity 9000.
Well, and then the other thing that I really appreciate about it, so they're implementing Dora the same way they implemented with the 1200. So if you guys remember when we saw OnePlus releasing the 1200 AI, and then you had the Super, and then
Nord
you had the
N20, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I love the fact that they're able to do that customization by OEM. So it does look like it's a much closer relationship than the one-size-fits-all approach that we've seen. And that's a very nice approach. And they are promising that to be with the 9000. So we're going to see variants. We're going to see special custom. And so we are going to see some versions that will be working specific and optimized and so on, which is exciting because,
absolutely.
The 9000 is the base.
My audience had been asking me about the Vivo X70 series. And because, I love their previous products, and the X70 Pro is a 1200 also Vivo. Customized.
Yeah, 1200
And that's actually the one they sent me. They didn't have any Pro Pluses to send me, so they sent me the Pro. And there you go, another Dimensity 1200 phone in the basket of phones at home.
It's absolutely exciting to see where we were with the 1000, with the 800 series, and then we went to the 11 and the 1200.
Yeah.
It's already a leap to start from that point of view, and getting most of 2021 and seeing so many devices released with it.
Yep.
And then now literally making us look really anxiously to see what comes out in 2022 and how soon can we get our hands on it, anything with the D9000 in it. So it would be, to me, that's what I was thinking. I wanted to go up there and ask us, so when is the first phone?
Well, we all asked that, and right now that's up in the air still,
I know,
right?
I know.
Obviously,
I love to know. I just left, it doesn't hurt to ask questions.
So, Eric, we want to talk about the rest of the portfolio. So let's go next to, for me, the second more important thing, which is Compagno, right? So the chips used in Chromebooks and in Android tablets.
Yep.
So obviously, that was nothing majorly new announced in this event, in the sense that the 800, 820, 828, and the 1200 have been already mentioned in the past. But at the same time, you've seen explosive growth, right?
We have. I mean, especially with a lot of it initially was pandemic fueled, but I think that's changing, where this digital transformation, where everybody wants to be online all the time with some kind of tablet, phone, computer in their hands all the time. So we've seen a ton of growth out of our key partners like Amazon, right?
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
we've launched several new generation of products: the Fire tablet HD, 8 HD, the 10 HD, the Kids Pro tablet is crazy successful for us. So we really have taken a dominant position in the tablet space. The Chromebook space is a new one for us, right? So we kind of crept up from the bottom, snuck in there a little bit with
you're doing pretty good
with the companion chip, and the 8183 is in our entry level, and it has had fantastic reviews. I think you guys heard from one of my colleagues today talking about battery life of over 16 hours, right? 16 hours. I don't think you're going to get anything from the big guy, up in the valley for 16 hours.
For sure. So for those of you watching this, the patrons who are watching the exclusive video, I'm holding here an ASUS Chromebook that MediaTek's provided us here at the Summit, and I haven't charged it since yesterday, and I haven't charged more than half, and I've used it almost the whole time for the whole Summit. So
great.
It's living up to it. I think this is the mid-range chip, whichever that is.
800?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's an 800. And honestly, I've always been a big fan of Chromebooks myself, so nobody has to sell me on that concept. But I've used Intel ones, I've used MediaTek ones, and frankly, I'm very happy with the MediaTek ones. Every one I've used is just, it's there for me. As long as I don't go crazy with the tabs, like I would on a big heavy duty like this MacBook recording here right now. But it's a different experience, right? You're not looking at doing the same kind of work.
Yeah, and if you remember, I'm curious to get your opinion as well of what do you think of like the display, right, and the size.
Yeah, no, it's.
I mean,
it's a nice
we really have worked closely with our partners to drive size and weight out of these things, and yet keep the same level of display that you should be able to get in any level notebook out there. Because kids are doing video on them, but also kids are playing games on them.
Right.
My son goes to school on them. That's how.
Wow.
I mean, the when you start saying, I mean, obviously the pandemic kind of fueled it. We were home, we were going, but his entire curriculum is run on a Chromebook, Chrome OS, integration with Google services and running it, which obviously helps facilitate it. But jumping between apps, sharing video calls, everything, and the battery life. And even obviously ours is an older one. It's not the same as some of the new generations, but I was very pleased with the capabilities and the just sheer horsepower that it does. It's powerful enough to do all of that and then some.
Yeah.
And you have the lightness, the easy to carry. You can travel with it. And the one so I got the Lenovo, not the Asus one. Same concept. Very light, very thin, flips over. I mean, it's seriously versatile and just begs to be used.
Yeah, well, that's the thing I love about Chromebooks. It's like, honestly, I'm more likely to pick up a Chromebook for around the house, to mutt around, to check my email, to do something than a tablet. If I want real estate beyond my phone, which is already a big screen comparatively, my Pixel 6 Pro, I just go to a Chromebook by default.
Well, I'm guessing you travel a lot.
Yeah.
Right? So do I. And so you try to put a tablet on your lap on the plane, it's impossible. Yeah. Right? So having something thin and easy that looks like a notebook, feels like a notebook, but acts like a Chromebook that's super light, really convenient for the travelers.
And, for people already like in the comments here are going to go, oh, but, what about the internet connection? The thing you have to understand is for most of at least Google's ecosystem of websites, like Google Documents and stuff, you can start a brand new document offline on a Chromebook without an internet connection.
Absolutely, yep.
And start typing away. And the next time you have an internet connection, it'll auto sync.
Yep.
So you can actually you can get work done. I've flown, I don't always have internet. If I can afford it and I have work to do, I generally buy the internet connection because it's just a business expense. But sometimes I don't. The satellite's down, whatever, the system's not working. And then if I'm on like a transoceanic flight for 8 hours, like I can actually write an entire review on a Chromebook without being on the internet. It's possible.
Or plugged in. You don't have to worry about the power.
Oh, that's the other thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay. Next, we have obviously the TVs. There was a new chipset announced today, right? Pentonic 2000, right? And I'm kind, I don't follow TVs a lot, but the Mobile Tech Podcast, anything remotely connected to phones, TVs are definitely connected to our phones nowadays. Right. So I feel like I learned some new things, like 8K Dolby Vision. I didn't know that was even a thing on consumer TVs. And it's 7 nanometer too, which is kind of amazing because power consumption doesn't seem like a huge deal for a plugged-in device, but at the same time, heat is a problem. And
thermals.
If you can have a little small electrical bill because you have TV on all the time,
It's a very big step forward in the connectivity, but they're also focusing. I mean, for me, the most exciting part is when they start talking about gaming and streaming and also trying to keep in a look or at least an outlook on online gaming and like Xbox Pass these type of online games. And they didn't say Xbox, but it's mostly like streaming online content. We're becoming a much more connected environment. And as you want your TV to be able to do everything you want, you also want it to be connected to everything you want. So I really like the interface and their focus on looking and bringing in fast frame rate, better quality images. But did you see remember the demo they were showing us also of conference calling on Duo? And
I mean, I'm not sure that's my thing, but I can see how some people want to do that. If you have a big family at the other end, it's easier to see them on a big screen. Yeah. And so what Tika's talking about, for those paying attention, is basically that it can decode multiple streams of
Dolby streams.
Like Dolby 8K streams at the same time. Or, your camera stream that you're watching yourself in the bottom corner, plus whatever TV you're watching that you're sharing with the people at the other end, plus their video coming in. Those are 3 streams you have to decode. And, one from the cable TV or whatever the IP provider, one from your built-in camera, one from, over the internet from whatever Zoom or Meet that you're using for the call. Yep. And all that, it gets decoded by the TV in real time. Now, some of it is, only 1080p, but some of it is going to be 4K, probably like the football game you're watching.
Oh, absolutely. As connectivity gets better, 5G and all technologies, we're getting better compression processes done. Like they brought out NVIDIA in there with the LSS. Obviously, the ability of downscaling the stream down, let it go through faster, and then upscaling it back. You're getting all of those processes done literally on your TV at this point. It's like a mini computer. Yeah. But it's focusing on simplicity and integration and making it the true hub. We all watched enough Netflix in the last year and a half, to fill a massive, collection. I can't. There's actually a lot of new things I'm waiting, but the biggest part is the fact that I had when I upgraded my TV is when I got to enjoy it. So new technology, 8K, 4K, 120 hertz, all the different capabilities.
AI processing. I think that's the thing that excites me the most. Yeah. Because I worked on computer vision back in the day on medical imaging, and I know a lot of this stuff. And seeing it happen in real time on 8,000 line, images or 4K even, where it actually looks at the content and it goes, oh, there's a city in this corner and then there's a field in this corner and a tree in the foreground, and it'll segment the entire image and process the image using AI machine learn to enhance the picture quality specifically for each area. And it does this in real time, 120 frames per second at 4K. It just blows my mind. If you had told me 25 years ago when I was working in medical imaging that was going to be the case, I would have laughed hysterically. I would, no way, you'll need a computer the size of this room. Absolutely. And here we are running on a chip that's,
on the back of, it's amazing.
Habits have changed, right? So we talk about the technical specs of it, right? But the pandemic changed the way people use their TVs, right? So now we want, we started looking at our TVs, we did video conferencing where we watch movies on them, and they're like, that's not good enough. So I think you'll see this transition. 4K is rapidly converting right now, which is where we've seen all of our upside in our TV business in the last year. Oh, yeah. There's several companies on the horizon with 8K sets. I think when I talked earlier this week, right? One of our key partners, Vizio. That's us powering their 8K set. And what also the trend also you'll see is more camera embedded.
Of
in
course.
These things, right? Because you brought it up, Miriam, right? The family interaction. We're never going to use it for business, but when your grandparents live across the coast and they're not maybe necessarily healthy enough to travel, or they can't travel for some other reason, you want to see them life size, and you do that on these big TVs in 8K, and I think that's what people are looking to push to. And I would just ask, don't forget about the Wi-Fi 6E capability in as well. Right?
Oh, absolutely.
So,
we should probably wrap up with that actually, because there's also, as a separate thing, in addition to the fact that TV support Wi-Fi 6 and 6E, you are now having some new chipsets for Wi-Fi used in routers and other devices that are coming out, and there's going to be a Wi-Fi 7 demo at CES, which I think is really exciting.
There is.
I can't wait to check that out.
Yep.
But yeah, no, 2 new chipsets for the Wi-Fi 6E, and then the Wi-Fi 7, the collaboration. No announcement as far as hardware yet, but obviously this is more a demonstration and getting to see the capabilities of what Wi-Fi 7 is. Because it's great to be that they're part of it. You know, MediaTek is in the middle of like faster processors, faster RAM, faster storage, and faster Wi-Fi connectivity. Everything 100%. You need.
Well, there you go. I think we kind of covered almost everything that was announced here. Most of the ecosystem. I mean, there's of course the smart speakers and the audio devices, the Peloton bikes. I mean, there's so much more we can talk about, but we're going to run out of time. So, Eric, thanks for being here and
appreciate you having me and
giving us an overview of the whole shebang.
It's been a fun week, couple days here with you guys, and hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Yeah, the F word is funny. The F word, I was like, okay, where are we going with this? And then, okay, nice play on words.
You can always trust Kevin with this stuff.
Yeah,
right?
He's good.
All right. Thanks so much again, Eric.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
So, TK, what did you think of this?
This is exciting. I mean, the fact... Okay, so first I'll say this. 2 years ago when we sat down and we talked about this, and a little bit of a background, obviously, the last time we did this together physically was literally at the last MediaTek Tech Summit. So we're getting a little bit of a... Not only do we get to see each other, we get a chance to sit down together.
It's a family reunion.
It is in many ways. A lot of good information, a lot of good announcements, many sectors. I don't know if you got a chance to check it out, but they had like literally 49 different pieces of tech sitting on the show floor, like on the out part of it.
I haven't yet.
And like seriously, they're in everything. They're in they're in microwaves, soap dispensers. I mean, even the toothbrush that they gave us, I was like, I totally did not think that would make sense. But then I'm like,
oh, we got a toothbrush.
Oh yes, sorry, a MediaTek Power toothbrush. But like you don't think about it that way. The base is exec, activated, and it has a built-in speaker, so you can listen to your music when you're brushing your teeth. Little things like that is exciting. But then to see them jump such a big jump in mobility, what they're trying to do, they're aspiring to jump into the game with a flagship, and they joked about the F word, but the reality is, we've all wanted them to jump up to that level for some time.
I mean, like. It's about time, honestly, right? Like, I didn't want to say that, but at the same time,
because it's been a somewhat of an understanding. Like you hear the word MediaTek, you always think, you don't think flagship, you think, cost savings.
I always think 700 series Qualcomm.
That's literally about that. The 1200 and the 1100 kind of proved they were able to hang in that mid 700 series, or probably even close to more like an 855 or a little bit like a couple of years ago, Snapdragon, but. What I looked at it and what I appreciate about it is the connectivity and the power consumption, the functionalities, everything. Literally, like you would not know you're not running on a Qualcomm chipset, and that's what 1200 did.
Yeah.
And the 9000. I'm looking forward to seeing what they had. They talked a little bit about 8K and a whole bunch of different things, but
I'm a little surprised they didn't have it. Qualcomm always has. I mean, we're going to be in Hawaii next week for their big announcement, but not next week, the week after. And I think, Qualcomm always has like Xiaomi or somebody comes on stage and says, we'll have the first,
absolutely. Actually, that's what they did last time. Remember? Xiaomi said, even at the virtual last year, Xiaomi was like, we're going to be first. We're going to be doing it. And then...
So I kind of wish MediaTek had done that a bit more.
It seems...
And I kind of wish it had deep dove more into the tech nitty gritty. Mm-hmm. Like... there's a lot of number thrown, which I think is helpful because there's a lot of numbers to start with. So
some of it was a little bit confusing, but
some of it was a little superficial. I think the reality is that they want. Here's my take. Mm-hmm. Hot take from Miriam. They wanted to be the first 4 nanometer. And this summit is already being scheduled for a while, so it makes perfect sense to reveal it here. but I think it's a little early in terms of partnerships for them to have someone on stage. And it's also a little early to announce devices or anything like that. And more importantly, the lack of millimeter wave, especially for the US market, is needs to be remedied, and it's happening, but not right away.
And they're trying to, they always like to segment their announcements and then kind of like plan it. It's a planned release, and when we all decided to ask, like, when is the first device, and obviously they said first, end of Q1 2022. So the reality matter is, we're probably not going to see anything for some time. And what I really appreciated, though, is the function that we got from them when they started talking about, the integration, the functions, all the different, I was going to say the Wi-Fi connectivity.
I think for me, what's interesting here is that we finally have something that might actually be potentially in some areas better than whatever Qualcomm's showing us next. And in some, I think there's going to be parity, but I think obviously everybody's got their specialty, right?
Yes.
And like traditionally, I found that at least in my benchmarking, which just doesn't reflect reality. I'm not a big fan of benchmarking, but for my hardware reviews, I do benchmarking, and MediaTek AI side is always really good.
Right? They're pulling all the stops where they're trying to go in here, and I think at the end of the day, we're probably going to get, like you said, in some markets, it's going to make more sense. But we're talking about fast cars. We're talking about fast processing, fast everything. The announcement of 4 nanometer, I think, like you said, it was more just to kind of release the announcement. Its timing makes perfect sense. And obviously, they're a couple of weeks ahead of the Qualcomm announcement, and we'll see what Qualcomm has to bring with them. Obviously, I'm sure Qualcomm is jumping in and doing a whole bunch of other things. But I was excited to see that the gap that we had between the 11 and the 1200 and where everything else was running, triple ISP, we had 18-bit, we have 8K processing, encoding, decoding. We're talking about, even 180 hertz on the 1080p. That we don't even have that on Qualcomm's side yet. But and then 2K at 144. So the gaming part of it that got me really excited because we were going to start seeing more capabilities. So yes, we don't have devices, which would have been very, very nice. And I again would have jumped on those things and been playing as much as I can. But their track record is proven there, and it is a big move. And everybody's going to make a Dragon Ball joke on it, so I'll insert that right there. Why is it not over 9,000?
Well, that's kind of what I was, wondering if they would touch on,
Yeah.
And then it's like that was the most obvious thing that.
But it is interesting to see what they have to do, and I think my only thing I would say is we need devices because the announcement is exciting, it's great. But we need to see how it's going to be implemented, and I want to see the variations that they do. We talked about it a little bit when we were talking a little earlier with Dora, but you're going to see custom versions of the D9000 re-released with OnePlus, Vivo, with Xiaomi, and all of that, and that's going to be the exciting part. How do they put their own little flavor of optimizations done there? So, like I said, it does seem a little bit more personal between the OEMs 100%. And the SoC manufacturers. So MediaTek, very different approach, very happy.
See, now I'm using this as a tablet, this Chromebook. Okay, because that's podcast topics, everyone. So now let's talk about some other stuff, because we've got a whole bunch of stuff to talk about. And look, I could go on about the MediaTek stuff, but I think with Eric here, we actually did a pretty good overview.
Yeah.
I'm much more excited and interested by the Pentonic 2000 than I thought I would be. It's not really my wheelhouse, but to see how everything that mobile has surfaced is starting to appear in the car processors, in the TV processors, in everything. It's just kind of amazing. And, it's even eating computing. Like the M1 chipset, various chipsets from Apple are showing the way of where computers going forward, And
it's going to drive the industry to shoot more into mobile computing. And my hope is that we see a better implementation. It just puts a little bit more pressure on Microsoft to trying to just get into it a little bit more. And not let, Chrome OS and Mac OS kind of like just squeeze them in, because they're kind of like on the opposite side. They're going to need
to really get, themselves going with this Windows on ARM thing, which they still have kind of seem to be humming and hawing about,
We saw what the major announcement was like a couple of years ago when we started looking at the Qualcomm.
2 years ago.
I know, that's what I'm saying.
And we're not seeing anything.
Hardware is
like, I'm not saying like I think the Qualcomm powered, 8CX and 7CX laptops and tablets or 2-in-1s we've seen out there some of them are very good.
But
they're not but they're not let down by the hardware and Qualcomm side or ASUS or whoever it might be.
Yeah.
They're let down by
The OS side.
They're let down by Microsoft right now.
And I think it's also support also from developers on trying to support more Windows on ARM type of an experience. So I think let's just say this. 2021 has been an interesting year. We've seen some improvements. Apple's definitely put the foot forward. We're trying to put in the MacBook Pro series into it. And I will say I've seen so many people now, I want to try it myself, but I'm excited about the Chromebooks mostly because of the simplicity and the functions that they present.
Yeah,
and the
too.
fact that they surprisingly fit that need that we needed last year, and it's continuing. And, my son goes to school on a Chromebook, and, when he's at home, when he's doing, when we're doing things when he's not in class, his homework is done on the Chrome OS. The teacher interacts with him through Google services. And I think that's just going to continue. I don't think that's going to go with the pandemic. I think the pandemic was the gear that we shifted with, and it's going to just keep going with it. So I'm excited.
Yeah. So, we've got a bunch of phones that were announced this week, surprisingly, and some good leaks and rumors. Actually, I'm very happy about the leaks and rumors this month.
I'm excited to about. Yeah, we'll talk about some of those leaks, but yeah.
So, have you played with the Moto G Power 2022? I know it's 2021. You're not listening to the podcast in the future, but
it will be released in the future, available for you at no, sorry. I did not get a chance to play with it. I saw the announcement, and unfortunately, I was not on the, I'm going to say the boondoggle, but the group. But I'm excited to see actually the approach that they decided to go with. I mean, it's providing us it still has like a large battery. You're still looking at some of that, but it's focusing also on a different camera system. Right. So they're shifting the approach, which is interesting for Motorola to try to do. It's like, I don't know if they're experimenting with the device, or is it more, I guess I didn't feel like it was a true successor to the last device we got. It's been some time.
It's an interesting thing. So I think I was very excited at the time when I went to the briefing in New York last week, because I was like, the whole time I thought it was a 1080p panel, right? I'm like, okay, it's an LCD, set your expectations accordingly. I don't expect an OLED at that price, but I was like, 90 hertz, great. And I'm like, 1080p, awesome. That's like the N100, no, the N100 is 720, like the N10 and the N200, right? Which are around that price point. This is a $200 phone with a Helio G37 from MediaTek, which is a 4G chip. So don't get too crazy. It's not a 5G phone.
Well,
but
it's 200. You have to also set your expectations.
Yeah, but
there are some 5G.
And also
but
US market 200. Because with $200 in India and in Europe and in Asia, you're going to get a Redmi or a Realme that's going to be, 1080p 90 hertz, and it's going to have 5G probably on a Dimensity 700 or 800.
Exactly. Yep.
But for the US, something you can go to any carrier and pick up, subsidized or whatever, 200 is a really good price point for the spec sheet. So 90 hertz, I'm a bit bummed by the 1080, the lack of 1080p, the fact 720p, but most importantly, the bezels. Oh my God. Go to my YouTube channel. I did an unboxing video. Check it out. I'll link it in the show notes. There's literally a half inch of bezel where, the display ribbon cable is. And I'm like, I know I've seen LCDs that minimize this to some extent. I'm kind of blown away that it's that obvious.
You could definitely see the tailored market approach to what this is intended to be. This is supposed to be a feature phone. It's intended to be, like you said, you may finance it, but I think most people probably just buy it outright.
Yeah, right.
It is actually boasting somewhat of an interesting camera. I mean, it's like a 50 megapixel.
That's what got me excited. It's a 50 megapixel sensor, one of the newer ones. It looks like the pixel bins up to 1.3 microns. So I think they're 0.65 micron pixels.
It's actually not bad. So my concern with that wasn't mostly about the camera sensor. I appreciated the pixel binning, but it's also going to be more about their processing. Motorola is known for being more very minimalistic approach to Android. Like their approach to Android isn't very I'm not going to say a la Samsung or anything like that. They're very pure, as close as possible. So I'm looking forward to seeing some samples. I'm looking forward to see some more reviews coming, kind of talking about the camera performance. Is it living up to that? Because you can put a 50 megapixel camera, you can put a 100 megapixel camera. So it's processing. At the end of the day,
my hopes are not very high, just based on Moto's track record with cameras, and also based on the fact that I have a Xiaomi phone in my pocket right here, the Redmi 10. Oh, okay. Which is a 50 megapixel equipped 4G phone that's even cheaper, $169 or something. Yep. And I'm pretty sure it's the same sensor. And you know how good Xiaomi's image processing has become over the last few years. Pretty nice, right? Nice. Yep. This camera's hurting. It's not that good. It's possibly worse than the 48 megapixels at the same price points were a year ago.
You could see where the tailoring is being done.
So I'm I don't want to be negative about the Moto because I haven't tried it yet, but based on their track record, based on the fact that even Xiaomi can't get something that great out of that 50 meg, assuming it's the same sensor. Could be a different sensor.
And more than likely, it's probably going to be fine realistically just in certain scenarios. I think it's, when we look at a device in that price point, we need to set our expectation at that price point.
Of course.
I'll say this. The 1080 part does a little bit for me. I wish it was 1080 a little bit better. But realistically, 90 hertz is such a big move from anybody that's in that price point that's upgrading to it. It's 50% improvement in performance and refresh.
100%.
And anything you do on the device is just going to feel faster.
It's going to be nice.
It is nice.
And so that was nice. The 90 hertz, the 50 megapixel could be good if
and
done
a large
right.
battery, still 5,000.
And of course, 5,000 milliamp hour.
Which, by the way, it should be the standard. I think at this time,
I agree.
45, maybe 5,000. You just need to hit 5 and
100%. And with a Helio G37, can you imagine how long that's going to go? Like
3.
They promised 3 days.
Even at 90 hertz, it doesn't matter. This will be the phone you charge and you forget that you need to charge again.
Now, there are some negatives beyond the lack of 1080p, which I think I'm just, it's just me getting all blocked up on that. But there is also no NFC, which is at this stage of the G family's life cycle. Like in the early days, the Moto G series was a budget phone. Not all budget phones had NFC. I was willing to let it slide.
Absolutely.
Then NFC became pretty commonplace in that $200 to $300 price point.
It's massive in Europe and other markets.
They didn't have it. And then I was a little more annoyed. And every time I reviewed one of the G series, I'd point that out. Then the COVID hit, the pandemic hit. And I was like, surely every Moto G from now on will have NFC.
Has to have NFC
in the US. Because we have to understand, those of you in Latin America watching right now, or wherever you are, that's not the US, are going like, Miriam, what are you talking about? No NFC. All the G series have NFC. Well, not in the US. So
it's a weird selection of removing,
and it's a 20-cent part, like you know what I'm saying. So I'm very miffed by that because not only did they not do it for all the G phones in 2021, but now this 2022 model doesn't have it either. And mono speaker. We're starting to see stereo on a lot of these phones. This Redmi 10 that I have is stereo
Redmi
audio.
And OnePlus has brought that down even to their N100 and N200. So I mean, look, I'm not. If this was $189 though, I'd be like, yeah. But 200, it's so you're gonna say it's $20. It's 3 espressos in San Francisco. But the reality is that for me, at $200, when I see what T-Mobile did with the Revel, right? That's built by some unknown Hong Kong company, but it looks a lot like a TCL phone. It's not though. I asked Brad, I asked T-Mobile, and it's not. It's made by some company I've never heard of. That phone, 5G Dimensity, I think 810 or something, it has, NFC. It doesn't have a high refresh rate screen. It doesn't have a 50 megapixel camera. But overall, I used it on a New York trip in the summer. And I was kind of impressed. I was like, there was not a photo I couldn't use after a bit of Google Photos editing. Absolutely. And I think the concern, though, that I think Motorola needs to start looking is OnePlus is in the game. I think to a certain point, we've had a market where I think it was pretty much, Moto, LG kind of like playing in that same playground a little bit on the lower end, but now LG is no longer in the game. But you also have to kind of keep in mind, look, OnePlus is bringing in better performing devices at a much lower form factor, and they're on carrier. They're at T-Mobile. You go in, you can pick up an N100, an N100, I think an N10. But you need to start kind of like, NFC after the pandemic should have been a shoo-in for everything. Yeah. Because we all realized how much we do not want to take our credit cards and touch and hand over and do whatever. Yeah. You just want to tap, walk away, and get it done. Yeah.
Especially in markets where Google Pay exists, right? Like, I mean...
It is. And I think... So here's the thing. In Europe, it's a much bigger demand because they use it for their transportation. It's in their payment. And they've gone through many iterations of it. It's not like something they're growing. We are starting, because of the pandemic, we became more aware of it. Yeah. Like the tap to go wasn't even a feature on most of our credit cards in the US till about maybe a year and a half ago.
It's true.
In Europe, everybody was like, and I was like, what are you doing? It's like, we just tap and walk. Yeah. And now all of our credit cards have it, right? Yeah. So anyways, I'm with you. The NFC part, I think, is an important factor, not just for convenience, but it's also for, cleanliness, I think, to a certain point, allowing us to do contactless.
100%. So speaking of Moto, there's another Moto phone that got released. This one, I didn't even know until I was researching the topics this week. Yes. Moto G71, which is going to be coming out in some markets in Europe, for example. €299, so $350 US. Yeah. Okay, listen to this. No high refresh rates, but OLED, 1080p, 50 megapixel camera.
That makes sense.
8 megapixel ultra wide, which by the way, the Power does not have an ultra wide.
I was about to say that was the other little thing they
Two
decided.
megapixel sticker cams,
Yeah.
macro that's going to be useless, no autofocus, and a depth sensor. But this has an 8 megapixel ultra wide, and most importantly, as a Snapdragon 695 5G SoC, which was announced recently, and we've never seen. This is the first one with it.
Yeah, it seems like it's something that is well. The 6 series, I think we are starting to see more and more devices come up with the 6 series, the 7 series. We saw that, the mid-rangers, but 6 series is more like cost-efficient, price point, like you said, about $350 with 5G, which is exciting to see. I mean, we've seen, I want to say 4 series with 5G, so 7 series, 6 series is definitely very nice.
And 5,000 milliamp hour battery, and a very similar camera pod to what we saw on this Moto G Power. I think that at the briefing I was last week, they said that would be their signature new camera pod for all going forward, all Moto phones.
All Moto phones.
And this one has it.
Same card. Okay.
So I don't want to talk more about this. I just want to point out there is now a phone with a 695 5G Snapdragon chip, and it doesn't look bad for $350, honestly. I wish there was a 90 hertz OLED on this, but I can live with 60 hertz. Because honestly, I'll take a 60 hertz OLED over 90 hertz LCD any day of the week.
Absolutely, yeah. Color representation, everything will look
And it's just the problem with the high refresh rate LCDs is that they're just, you get that weird ghosting when you have scrolling text, which you don't have on the OLED. All right, so that's one thing. And then the next thing, we have a whole bunch of rumors here. Well, first, before that, let's talk about Apple now supporting DIY repair.
Right.
Because that is exciting AF.
I was excited. Okay, so
you're not excited anymore?
I'm excited too. Okay, so don't get me wrong. Yes and no. This was something that, and I was talking to Juan Carlos yesterday about it on our podcast, hashtag shameless plug right there. It's something that we've been waiting for. We've been asking for. There's legislation going around. Obviously Apple's feeling the pressure. We know why this came out the way it came out.
It's definitely a political move.
Absolutely.
This is not Apple wanting to do this.
Yeah, exactly. This is, so get that out of the way and we'll focus on the conversation.
100%.
The biggest concern, the biggest factor, or the biggest thing that we've been dealing with is the fact that, the ability of using a piece of hardware from another device to replace and fix your current device is just not functional, and Apple will not allow you to do that. Even from a fully functional, or maybe the LCD from an iPhone, 7 to another iPhone 7 exact model, you couldn't do it. I think the approach that they're doing here is, it's definitely, I appreciate the fact that we're moving in that direction.
Right.
My concern that I'm looking at it here is the way they marketed it. So they're like, okay, look, we already have certified Apple repair facilities, or people that are certified to be able to repair. They have original Apple hardware certified. And the benefit here is if you feel like you're adventurous and you would like to do that, you can go in and replace the battery. You can go in and replace the display. And I think, I forgot what was the third one. I think it was battery, display, and one more component.
Can't remember, but
yeah,
it's iPhone 12 and iPhone 13 series right now, and all the M1 Max.
Okay, so did they actually say M1 Max, or did they just say M1? Because I remember I saw that was say M1. I was thinking it's probably going to be jumping into the iPads or something like that.
I don't know. I think it's just a Max.
Yeah. So, but my thing about it is, okay, they're still not allowing third party, like other vendors, other manufacturers. You can't buy a display off of, let's say, eBay to go be able to save yourself, because the main benefit here is you're saving yourself some money from the labor, right?
Well, we'll see, because they're giving us the service manuals, and they're going to make the tools available so you can serialize the new part
software.
You bought.
So that was the exact.
But the question is that software going to let you take a part from eBay that's unserialized or already serialized and reserialize to your phone?
And I don't think that's how it's going to be.
And maybe they'll surprise us.
So here it is. I hope that that's the conversation, because, like I said, the biggest thing for me was I had an Asus, what's it called, an ROG Phone 2. And I magically, and I'm not going to confess to any of that, but we broke the display. But it's a great phone and I love it. I just bought a display off of eBay, got it in, installed it, opened it up, put it in, everything. And that's literally one of the cost savings. And I appreciate the manuals, I appreciate the tools, I appreciate the certification process and all of that. But that was what I was concerned. Like, what happened if somebody does want to go buy a used phone to fix? Yeah. And I feel like what they're doing is they're still controlling the approach. You still have to buy it from them. And the facilities that you go to will have to buy from them. So all of it still goes back to, Apple
I think
Apple.
your concerns are legitimate, and I have those too. But I still think it's a step forward.
Absolutely.
Whether they did it for the wrong reasons or not is still a step forward.
And I'm waiting for the USB-C on the next iPhone as much as the next guy or person, you know. But
do you have $87,000 to spare?
I wanted to go on. I know. I saw that one. I was like, oh my god. Okay. It is exciting. Like I said, it's like regardless of how we got here, I'm glad we are here.
Yeah.
And the reason I say this realistically is because of how many times we see other OEMs copying from the Apple book.
Yeah.
So my goal, or hopefully, so we don't get to the point where we see other OEMs jumping in with the, sorry, you can't take it, you can't fix your display by buying a piece. I don't want to get to that conversation. This shift actually is helping us. So I'm happy with that. Yeah.
All right, some leaks. First, I'm on again, I'm off again, I'm on again, I'm off again. We're not quite sure if we're having a relationship, but maybe we will. Maybe we're friends. Maybe we'll be lovers. We're not sure. Is this sound familiar to those who've listened to the podcast before? Yes, I'm talking about the Samsung Galaxy F21 Fan Edition. The phone that exists but doesn't exist, and might exist but might be coming out, but we're not sure.
And it's that it's fact that well, I'm not going to jump. I'll let you steer the conversation. But the fact that we are literally at the end of the year and there is no more Galaxy Unpacked events,
so January, the latest rumors have been a January launch. Could be CES, could be something else. I mean, that did launch the S21 at CES last year.
Actually, it was right.
It went at CES. In quotes.
Yeah, it's CES adjacent.
But so it could happen. But the reality is, this phone has been coming and then not coming and then coming and not coming.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, weird analogy, but you get the idea. Hence the on and off relationship joke that I keep making for so long. And we all want it. Like, that's the thing. We all want this phone. We love the Fan Edition. So I'm looking forward to maybe having a Fan Edition in January. What we know so far is that it's exactly pretty much a carbon copy of the FE last time, that's the S20, with a Snapdragon 888. So probably the same triple 12 megapixel camera system that was really solid. Probably maybe a slightly bigger battery, but the industrial design of the Galaxy S21 with that camera bump, probably glass stick back, the same. Wireless charging, the same.
Probably Android 11.
So don't get too excited because I have a feeling the S22s can't be far behind.
No. So last year, we'll say this, 2020 end of 2020, beginning of 2021, we saw a massive shift in how fast companies want to get devices to the market. So I know we're going to talk about, Qualcomm in a couple of weeks or so when we hear what they have to do. But the reality is there's still a good chance, we're going to see devices, if Xiaomi decides to do it again, like
it's
the
be
Mi 11.
It's going to be Xiaomi.
It'll be in China, but it'll be a device released with whatever the next SoC, the 898 or 988, I think it's 898? Yeah. The rumored 898 SoC. 898. Yeah, the next successor. So yeah, the S22 could not be that much further back. I don't think Samsung would want. I
do want, as an aside, to say that Qualcomm has an issue with their naming going forward now, so I'm not sure where they're going to go. Like 898 sounds so cumbersome.
So we don't know if it is. By the way, this is what we're anticipating. 888. So you jump into the next one.
Could last be year 890 even, because remember they did a 780 for Xiaomi. They have a 778, it's a 6 nanometer, and there's a 780, which is a one-off. They did it only on the Mi 11 Lite, and it's a 5 nanometer version of the 778.
It's a very, it's becoming very, the waters are definitely muddied a little bit, but whatever number it ends up being, obviously we're going to see some improvements, but I'm hoping thermals are addressed.
Yeah, 88 thermals are broken.
Yeah, so honestly, don't get me wrong, horsepower, perfect, but the throttling that happens after he's getting some heat when you're playing some games like Genshin Impact after some time, you are going to feel that. And actually, believe it or not, that was one thing I enjoyed seeing with the D9000 was trying to benchmark against. They talked Genshin at 60 frames per second for about 25 minutes. That's a decent time for a phone to hang. I mean, if it's able to hang in that much, I'm excited to see the performance. So very much. I can't wait to see what we do.
We'll see what happens. More rumors. I'm a bit excited about this, I'm going to say, because I felt like the OnePlus 9 series this year was a bit of a bust. Mm-hmm. The 9 Pro was a great phone. It's essentially an Oppo Find X3 Pro clone in many ways. I daily drove the Find X3 Pro, and it's a fantastic phone. It's one of my favorite of 2021.
Absolutely crazy.
And I think the OnePlus 9 Pro is up there as well with that. But the 9 was a disappointment. The lack of OIS, the plastic chassis. Mostly when you saw what the Nord 2 was like with OIS. with, you know, a Dimensity 1200 at $500 price point. And then now we have I don't know if you know this, I missed it in October somehow, but OnePlus released, I think in China only, a OnePlus 9RT.
I also thought it was in India as well. Yeah, but originally the 9R was an India release only.
Correct.
So when the
and it was an 8T with the Snapdragon 888 and the new industrial design, essentially. And then this 9RT or RT is actually kind of blowing my mind. Also 888, but OIS on the 50 megapixel Sony IMX766. So basically they took a Nord 2 and put a Snapdragon 888 in it, and they're selling it in China.
I think we're going to start seeing more and more focus on OnePlus, and mostly because OnePlus and Oppo are getting very, let's say, buddy and very cozy. Sure. At least software-wise, for sure. I think all of the devices, I think Hydrogen OS, the end of Hydrogen OS, jumping into Color OS, and now that we know, OnePlus is even using Oxygen OS on top of Color OS, so everything's literally Color OS based. Oppo's going to be driving a big part of this conversation. I'm hoping we start seeing some of the improvements that we see in Oppo cameras bleed over.
Because they're really good in my opinion.
It is, and don't get me wrong, the 9 Pro is absolutely a really good device. I love the ultrawide, some of the best experiences in ultrawide. But I still felt like the 9X Pro, the FX3 Pro still performed a little bit better when it came to photography.
I agree.
Regardless of the microscope camera and all of that, that's a different approach. But from a standard front-facing, back-facing video recording,
even their little janky 2 or 3x telephoto in there was actually pretty solid, despite the specs being very middling. So I feel like the 9 is the outlier bad phone of the higher end OnePlus phones this year. The 9R was solid. The 9RT is solid. The 9 Pro is solid. And the Nord 2 is solid. And then the 9 is just like, well, whatever. We'll make a phone for the US carriers, basically.
It is actually
it's ridiculous.
It's a US variant.
To me, the fact that they yanked, it's just, I can live with the plastic chassis, even though I don't like it at this price point, $729. Come on. Look, the problem is that the elephant is in the room. It's called Pixel 6.
Pixel 6.
Pixel 6, metal, glass, OIS.
Google said, hold my beer at the end of the
year. Hold my beer. They're out OnePlus. So
it was,
10 Pro leaked.
So some of those images that are coming up with the 10 Pro look very...
very interesting. Kind of Galaxy-ish a bit, the camera pod.
A little bit. I felt like it was Galaxy. They took the camera on the S21 Ultra and they're like, let's make it a little bit wider.
It's a little square.
A little bit squarish.
I'll show the audience here real quick. Yeah, I think, look, I'm excited about the specs I'm seeing here. It's basically going to be the next Qualcomm Snapdragon.
More than likely, yes, exactly.
Flagship, and then we're going to see supposedly 120 hertz 2K display, of course, like basically the same.
I would like to actually see, if they're able to push a little bit more, maybe.
The cameras are the wild cards. That is the rumors of a 64 megapixel main sensor this time. That seems a bit weird, but I'll take it. If it doesn't suck.
I would have loved to see them with the GN1. I would love to see more devices come out with the GN1.
The GN1 is so good.
It is just like Xiaomi hit it out of the park with that. And then I was going to pull it, but I left my phone on the other side there. It's a great sensor, and I think we need to see more companies trying to focus on that and improve the performance there.
Yeah.
I'm more than likely thinking it's probably going to have a Hasselblad relationship again, because I don't think it was a one year.
That's continuing, and hopefully this time it influences the optics and the sensors a
little bit more than just modes.
Like last year, they were very clear it was just color signs, and honestly, it was a bit of a, pardon the pun because of colors, a wash. See what I did there?
No, absolutely.
See, as I'm waking up, things are improving. Okay, so look, we'll be there for this one. This is going to be US bound phone, the 10 Pro, 100%. We're going to all be looking at this very closely. So stay tuned. But I put it in here because I was like, this is the first time we're hearing something that sounds pretty juicy. But you know what I'm more excited about that also came along with the same rumors?
No, which one?
Please hold your horses. Don't get mad at me.
Okay.
OnePlus Nord N20 5G. So, the North American Nord
version
line that is kind of janky, but the N200 was pretty good. They learned from their mistakes on the N10 and the N100, and this is the N20, so success to the N10. This is looking really good, actually. Now, don't get too excited. I don't think we're going to see OIS on the main camera anytime soon because US market, but the industrial design looks really nice. right?
Whoa,
This thing right here.
Okay. They're copying.
folks,
They're bringing down the Nord 2 and the first
I'm going to
Nord.
bring it up for you on video, who's watching. And this looks really hot to me, and it's a flat slab. It's looking like an iPhone. The sides are slab. So I kind of love that design. I think that's hot.
It has a little bit of a flair of the...
But here's what you should be excited about. Remember we talked about the Moto G71 with the Snapdragon 695 5G? That's what that has. And, I'm so excited about this. AMOLED. 6.43 AMOLED with in-display fingerprint sensor. Now, it's going to be 120 hertz AMOLED. You know that they would never go back to a non-120 hertz after having all the end has 120 hertz.
Okay, man. That is going to be... that. So
this might be their little gift to us. They may be like, we've been listening, have a Nord equivalent that the carriers will be happy with.
Yes, and not have it but with anything else that
48 megapixel main camera.
That's good.
If it's even the old IMX, whatever,
586. I want to say the 586. Yeah,
I'm on board. That one is so well tuned. I'll take it any day of the week. And I don't expect OIS, but I can live without OIS. If this phone is $300, which is what the N10 was, yep. Oh my God, this is gonna be sweet.
This value for us in the US right now, which I really like. I felt like when the 9 and the 9 Pro at the beginning of the year, we saw a massive gap. Because we used to have the 9 or the non-pro model be the mid-ranger, the mid-range pricing, and then now we're like it's in the flagship price point. This will be very nice, and having selection and options. And seriously though, even the last two versions of the Nords have been great. Like I recommend them easily for anybody looking for a budget-friendly, capable smartphone that just runs fast. Oxygen OS implementation, and we'll see how ColorOS influences it, is still some of my best versions of Android skins on devices, just from the light sense and still having enough customizations, because they tailor the experience, right? You don't get all of the 9 and 9 Pro features, but you get like 90% of them, even some gaming functions, although, again, not intended for gaming. I'm really excited to see some more Nords in the US, and I just want them to bring the Nord 2. Like,
it's just not going to happen because the price point is just... Yeah, I mean, I don't know what they can do about that. I hope that they see the Pixel 6 this year and go like, we need to go back to our roots for OnePlus, and that they bring us a OnePlus 10 that's a direct competitor to the Pixel 6. With OIS, metal and glass, just not messing about, wireless charging, all the shebang.
And OnePlus can do it.
And then do the 10 Pro very much like this. You make the 10 Pro $300 more if you have to. Like, make a bigger disparity in price, because that'll be closer to a Nord that we will never get.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
Because the Nord 3 will come out, and we will be crying ourselves to sleep saying, we want this phone.
And they just released the Nord 2 Pac-Man edition. I mean, they're still releasing more than... Yeah, I was like, come on. Custom editions, so yeah.
And that thing glows in the dark. The back of it, the back panel is a glow-in-the-dark panel.
I mean, obviously it's a marketing thing, but they did that last year with Cyberpunk with the AT.
Yeah, I'll add that to the show notes.
Yeah, very
fun. The glow-in-the-dark OnePlus Nord 2. Pac-Man edition. One last phone that caught my attention. Have you heard of Balmuda?
No.
Balmuda, the Japanese toaster maker. They make the most advanced, sophisticated toaster.
Okay.
Well, I have a Cuisinart toaster. I want to point that out to the audience that I really love. It's really high end. Spend a lot of money. It's like $150 on a toaster. I've never spent that kind of money on a toaster, and I love it. But this Balmuda toaster is $300, and apparently it's a toaster oven, by the way. And it's better. It's the best. It makes the fluffiest, nicest toast the world has ever seen because Japan. And they made a smartphone. Oh, okay.
Why not?
Kyocera.
I was like, why not?
We love our Kyocera. Made a phone for Balmuda, the toaster maker, for Japan, and it's really adorable. It's a 4.9-inch display.
It's a tiny pocket size. Yeah,
it's $900. It's got this weird convex shape.
Bit. Yeah.
It's very cute.
Dual cameras across from each other.
Yeah.
Like, okay.
Let's see if I've got some specs here. This is a great... I'll link to an article by Sam Byford at The Verge, because Sam lives in Japan. He's actually touched it. So
okay. I was like, why would... It's okay. I'll say this. I was not expecting when you say a manufacturer of toasters like in Japan, but I would imagine, if there is going to be tech being experimented on and new tech to come out, Japan would be the place.
Yeah. So it's a 1080p display. Not clear if it's LCD or OLED. It does have. It's a $900 phone, so they're not like trying to be cheap here, and the specs are not the specs of a $900 phone. But hold your horses because this is not going to be for everyone. Also, this is Japan, where things are strange.
Yeah.
Let's see. At the thickest, it's 13.7 millimeters, so it really tapers, right?
Yeah.
Has a very cool shape.
I think it's trying to marry the contour of our hand, just to be more
48 megapixel sensor. I think it has a dual camera system in the back. Doesn't say what the other one is. 6 gigs of RAM, 120 gigs of storage again. Oh, the battery. Are you ready? You Flip users will be satisfied to know there's a phone with a worse battery than yours. 2,500 milliamp hour. You charge every 6 hours? Okay, let's see what's the chipset, though. That's the thing we don't know. Let's see. I'm trying to find it. Android 11, of course, blah, blah, blah. It doesn't seem to say where the chipset is.
Yeah.
I don't see the specs.
This is going to be one of those, Japan-only type of experiences, but definitely interesting.
I mean, I think it's a 5G phone, because Japan has a lot of 5G. I'll link it in the show notes. Check it out. I just had to include that. Not everybody, it's not every day that you see a phone that costs, $900 with a 4.9 inch display.
Just from, okay. So when I saw that in the notes when you were sending me, I was like, I did not hear about that one. And then I was reading as well. I was like, yeah, toaster.
It's because you got to follow your toaster news.
I fell off the toaster bandwagon sometime. I've been going Lebanese, all of that good stuff. Just enjoying good Lebanese cheese. But a lot of stuff. This week is busy. I know October is done. Techtober is done. But November doesn't seem to be letting off, and December is going to be, and then you get January, and
it's crazy. The second half of Techtober. It's called Noctober.
And
no wait,
Techtober, and then you got
Techvember. Techvember.
Techvember, we got it.
We're gonna make this work. TK, you want to tell folks where they can find you on the internet, the various social handles, YouTube channels, and podcasts?
I'm all over the net. If you haven't heard of what TK Bay is, you probably, it's easy to say just follow the beard. But obviously for the audio part of this, just TK Bay or TKDSL8655 on Instagram and Twitter, and just TK Bay over on YouTube. And if you happen to speak Arabic, there's also Tariq Bay. That's also linked through my TK Bay channel for the Arabic, for the Middle East, basically. That's a little project that started about a couple years ago and it's doing well.
It's awesome. I love that you just do the videos again and whatever. It's awesome.
It's the best that we can.
All right, folks, you know where to find me on the internet. I'm at Tankgirl. That's TNKGRL, like the comic book character Tankgirl without the vowels. Just drop the vowels. And then you get my Twitter handle and you get my Instagram handle. And the Twitter handle is important because if you want to talk with me and TK about this podcast, you can hit us up on Twitter. So remember our Twitter handles and then just go, you're wrong about the G71. And then Instagram is where you'll find pretty pictures of phones, pretty pictures taken with phones, pretty pictures of cars taken with phones. It's all a mess.
And beautiful, beautiful sunset pictures taken from phones. Especially since we're right next to an amazingly looking beach. Correct.
The podcast, as you know, lives at mobiletechpodcast.com. There's an RSS feed there. We're also on Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Pocket Casts, Spotify, a bunch of other places. If it's your first time here because you're following TK, please subscribe. If it's not your first time here and you haven't subscribed yet, come on, subscribe. And if your app lets you rate or review the show, please consider doing that. That really helps. There's a couple of YouTube channels you should subscribe to as well if you want to see the unboxing of that Moto G Power. It's on there. That's youtube.com/mobiletechpodcast, and it's the main channel. So unboxings, all the devices that are pure phone and direct, products that are near phones are going to be on there. We also have youtube.com/mobiletechmore, a second channel, and that's like all meta, all the stuff surrounding phones, like travel tech, car tech, home automation, maybe TVs now. Maybe I'm not excited about it.
I think there need to be an expansion into
exactly TV. Yep. Anyway, the point is, as the second channel, we need some more subscribers. Please subscribe to both, but subscribe particularly to the Mobile Tech More channel. That'd be great. Like the videos, comment, tell me in the comments what you think of these various phones. So I'll be there answering your questions. Okay. So 2 YouTube channels: youtube.com/mobiletechpodcast, youtube.com/mobiletechmore. Please subscribe and we'll find you there. And finally, there's a Patreon. So those of you already watching this video know that you can get this podcast before the audio version, generally a day or two, in video format. That's why,
That's the new,
we're doing it. It's nice. And it's great because it's kind of mostly unedited. We'll just cut out the really bad parts, but you get like just the raw feed, and you get to be with us and see us and get to see me show you pictures on my computer. And sometimes we have the phones to pull out, which is fun. So if you want to enjoy that, there's a great link you should follow. Patreon.com/TankGirl. That's TNKGRL. Patreon.com/TNKGRL. We've got a bunch of different tiers on there. We've got a tier for Discord as well. I got a Discord server. If you want to chat with me, please hit me up, ask questions. That'd be great too. So if you want to help the podcast, consider Patreon. And for the tier that gets the video, you get a video a couple of days in advance every week. It's kind of fun. So check out Patreon. And I want to thank Roger M. It's not Roger Moore. I checked. That's not his last name. But thanks so much, Roger, for joining Patreon and supporting the channel. Really much appreciated. And yeah, I also want to thank Audible, our sponsor, longtime sponsor, audible.com. They're awesome. If you like books as much as I do, you like to read as much as I do. Sometimes you can't read. You're tired, you're traveling, you're in a car driving, whatever it might be. It's nice to listen to books instead of read them. And if you're like me, a big fan of books, then you're going to love Audible. Audible has a huge selection of books. A lot of books are read by the authors. Sometimes it can take 12 hours to listen to a book, which is great because you just break it down to small pieces and you kind of look forward to listen to the next piece, just like you look forward to opening that book again and reading the rest of it. They're a great platform. They've been around for a long time. They've been a sponsor for a long time. I just think you should check it out. It's audibletrial.com/mobiletech. That gives you a 30-day free trial and you get to keep a book at the end, whether you stay or not. I hope you stick around, but check it out. audibletrial.com/mobiletech. They have podcasts. They have short form content as well. It's a great, great platform for books. So audibletrial.com/mobiletech. I want to thank Audible for being a longtime sponsor. And TK, I want to thank you again for being my second in a row, because we didn't do it last year, but second in-person MediaTek Summit.
Absolutely.
Yes.
It's an amazing way to continue, just hanging out, but even more, the fact that we get a chance to see each other. Honestly,
I know, it's nice,
you don't know how much you miss seeing people and hanging out with your friends and buddies, that we used to see each other so much till you got, so hopefully things keep going and we do have more things and we'll hang out a little bit in Hawaii. We'll kick it and we'll talk.
And I also want to thank Eric Fisher of MediaTek for being our guest as well and kind of filling us in on what happened here at the summit. Really good stuff going on. Stay tuned for some more MediaTek content on the podcast very soon before the end of the year. That's it, folks. I'll have another show next week, obviously, so stay tuned for that. Until then, cheers, everybody.
Bye-bye.
This has been the Mobile Tech Podcast with Tank Girl, proudly presented by worldpodcasts.com. You can visit us online at mobiletechpodcast.com.